Okay, this is my spoiler review of The Matrix Resurrection. This movie is so intelligently done that it is one of the best Matrix movies. Not many people will see that because they don't really understand the Matrix code. And one thing that I've learnt in all my years is that, as most of you know, I've kind of been silent. I don't really talk about the Matrix. I'll put forward ideas on it, but I haven't said much on it. The Matrix Resurrection movie is divided into three parts. The first part is the Matrix part, the second part is the Reloaded part, and the third part is the Revolutions part. If you take your time and you see the movie, you'll actually see these stages coming out together. The important thing is that, in my opinion, I look at Lana Wachowski as the architect of the Matrix. And the fact that she's using old Matrix code to make this movie, it makes it easier to understand if you understand the old Matrix. So let me just point out a few things that I noticed, and this review will kind of be all over the place because I promise I'm so excited about this movie. I can't wait to watch it again. So, one thing I noticed when I finally concluded with the movie is that, on the one hand, no one escapes the Matrix. The only escape is to remake the Matrix. I'm going to pull out a few things that stuck out to me. I did make some notes, but given this is my first time recording, the recording is probably going to be all over the show. I'll just put some fun things. There was a nice Easter egg I noticed in the movie. When Morpheus 2 meets Neo in the toilet, he actually, there's a picture, a drawing on the toilet door of a bunny rabbit, a reference to Bugs. In the coffee house, there's an E-Corp sign. What is this movie about? It continues with the old paradox of free will versus destiny. It brings into question the idea that are we all just algorithms and can we escape our programming? This movie is a return to the Matrix conversation. When Neo is having coffee with Trinity in the coffee shop, you actually see Trinity's reflection in the table, so we know that they've also altered her DSI, and hence that is why her husband was laughing when she told him that she looks like Trinity. In the dojo scene, an important part is that after Neo destroys Morpheus 2, we notice an explosion. That same explosion is how the Matrix movies actually start, with this burst of consciousness. This movie is about hope and despair. It's about desire and fear. And the one thing that's important, we're also given clues that Morpheus 2 tells us that he's wearing new glasses. And that, in effect, is what Lana wants us to do. She wants us to wear new glasses for this movie. In other words, we got to look at this movie through a different lens than we did the original, but still understanding the Matrix code. Another aspect I had on it was that such beauty of a movie can only be written by someone with a free mind. Okay. Another question that came to mind is, can you be your best self in the Matrix? And what does it mean to be your best self? I think that's a term that's going to obviously go viral, the idea of a best self. Another clever idea that this movie brings in is that Lana herself explains the creative process within the movie. One thing that I must say is the original Matrix movie, for me, actually ruined all movies. It was just such a deep movie that after that most movies meant nothing. And after many years, this movie finally means something. It's like I'm way back in the Matrix again. We have to look at the idea of habits and guilty pleasures. There's also, in the movie, there's a focus group that's dealing with the idea of what the original Matrix is. And what's important about that scene is that, in a sense, Warner Brothers probably had a focus group on what the Matrix fans liked about the movie. And in that focus group, they talk about ideas of bullet time, switching on a synaptic, what the light on. So that is exactly where Matrix fans are, in that we all have these different ideas of exactly what the Matrix movie is. But I'm thinking that probably someone out there does. Someone out there sees the movie totally different from everyone else. And we have to ask the question, what made the original Matrix different? And in asking that question, we have to ask what makes Resurrections different. Is it the idea that they're using old code to tell the story? And in terms of the Matrix code, those are the ideas of the meta references that Lana puts into the movie, the aesthetics of mind. The other thing I noticed is that when Neo takes the blue pill, you notice that he struggles to swallow the pill. And that's an important scene in his bathroom. It's a struggle for him in that he's not dealing with this reality well. He kind of senses he's asleep, and in being asleep, he is constantly after coffee, in a sense, trying to wake up. For Warner Brothers, we actually see within the book for the focus group that there's pie charts, and in other words, their projection is just a profit projection, while Lana, the architect, her projection is an artistic projection. So we see that the Matrix fans as well, for some of them it's the guns, it's the bullet time, while for others is a deeper search for meaning. And in the first Matrix, when we meet Neo, we see that Neo we meet his screen first, which is important in terms of Baudrillard and what he says about human beings and screens. And in this movie, again, when we meet Neo, we meet his screen again. But the difference is, his first screen is shown that he's running a search for Morpheus, a search for the dream. This time his screen has Matrix code. In other words, he understands something about the Matrix. Is Matrix a mind pong, all philosophy and shiny? Another idea is that the ideas themselves are the new sexy. It tells us that for some, the Matrix is about trans-politics. The Matrix is about crypto-fascism for some. Others, the Matrix is about capitalism, exploitation. So we have all those ideas, but the thing is, how do we bring those ideas into one? And there's so many references and clear ideas that go back to the first Matrix, but we have to think of this movie and all the Matrix movies. So we have one that introduces us, the first Matrix introduces us to the Matrix universe. The second Matrix expands on the Matrix universe. The third Matrix expands on it again, and this Resurrections compresses all three into one and expands on it further. And this, it's like if you have any gadget and you add something to improve it, it makes me wonder why people didn't like Reloaded and Revolutions when there were only expansions of it. and expansions on an idea cannot be bad, because we needed to know more about this Matrix universe. And then another a question that Trinity asked, which I liked, which was important, is how do you know if you want something, or if your upbringing programmed you to want it? The fact that she's talking about programming, in a sense, means that she has to have an understanding of the Matrix in her head, because the idea that we can be programs originally came from the Matrix movie. Before Trinity gets a coffee, she's invited to fly the free flag. There is just so much in this movie, and it's going to take a lot of watchings for most people to get it. One idea that comes to mind is that, you know, your memories, are you your memories? And the idea, can your memories be madness? And, you know, for some people, one important point will be that the speech from Morpheus 2, in which he says that you put me in a tiny ass mold searching for you. But in a sense, it kind of feels like the Matrix movie, for some of us, it put us in a tiny ass mold searching for meaning to the Matrix movie, as if that was some kind of experiment, as if we are the sheeple of the Matrix. Another important aspect was where Jude speaks and says, "Are you alone in this world?" And he's like, "That's a sexy question." And I think the original Matrix dealt with that concept of alone in the world, and we actually have it that in the first Matrix, Neo's alone in the world, and in this Matrix, he's alone in the world. I mean, that is some kind of irony that he's in the Matrix again, he's got a much better life, but he's still kind of living the same life that he lived in the past. And then there's also reference to, in this movie, that the Matrix movies are a game. And on the one hand, while referring to the movies as a game, we know they're referring to the movies, but it's also important because we actually see that the Matrix movies itself, it is like a game. It's like a mind game that you can explore. And I guess for me, the one question that will stick out in terms of the Matrix movie being a mind game, who is the first one out? Who's the first one to actually solve this mind game? And as Lana Wachowski herself has said, is that the Matrix was originally created to bring meaning to people's lives. And then I like the idea of how everyone sees you and how you see yourself. In terms of that, Neo's DSI looks totally different from how he sees himself, and how he sees Trinity, and how Trinity sees herself. And then it also asks the question of, if the machines make the world, if they make the world the Matrix for people to live in, and if you live in that world and you make your own world within that world, what happens to the question of choice? Okay, I think I'll sum it up for there, and I will get back to there. Is just so much to break down on this movie, and I understand that a lot of people will be disappointed. It really is going to be like a binary decision, in that some will get it and some won't. And don't worry about that. If you don't get it, don't worry about it, because it's going to get better. You'll have a chance to watch it again. We've been waiting a long time for this movie, and just don't get yourself too confused. Watch some of the critics. listened to those who also hated the movie. They just have as much an important part to play in decoding this matrix. And so I will get back to the idea of decoding the matrix. I've taken over the channel again. As you all know, that we had some stress on the channel, and the person that was handling the channel decided to give it up, so I'm back. And I promise I'll bring more entertaining videos and a bit of an expansion to the site as well. Okay, I'm just trying to check through my notes and see what else I'd written. There's also reference to the fact that Niobe, who kind of plays a semi-oracle in that she's a wise old woman, mentions that Zion itself had become a matrix, which is interesting because there's the whole debate, the MWAM theory, matrix within a matrix, and lots of people hate it and some people like it, and it's a binary idea. People don't like to believe that Zion could have been a matrix, but Niobe kind of hints to the fact that it became a matrix within its own, and the idea is a matrix just a matrix when it's computer generated, or is a matrix a state of the world? Okay, I'm just checking through my notes, see what else there is. A lot of this movie is actually telling us how we're going to react to it. There is going to be a conflict. This is something that Smith too says. There's going to be a conflict about what this matrix is. But while that is inevitable, what is important is that there's a new search to begin. I also liked the Merovingian in it, is that he's making a social commentary, and it is so important. And he talks about how in the past, in terms of the matrix, there was style and class, and right now all there is just people who are just hunting for memes, trolls. We really live in a totally different world. What else? I can't really remember. Oh, okay, the analyst. I mean, we can call him the architect, but reality is that he's the analyst, and he says that human beings believe the craziest shit. And honestly, if you browse the internet, you'll realize, flat Earth. There's a lot of garbage out there that people believe in, and more important than that is that the analyst came in and seen where the architect was failing. And he realized that in terms of human beings, dealing with their emotions and fear, the worse life you gave them, the more they, in a sense, production goes up. In that we produce more when we're trying to, combat our own personal sufferings, our own personal holocaust, if you like. So they're giving us these nightmares, our own brains. They're using our own brains to torture us, and that, in effect, makes production go up. So I'm not sure if I've mentioned this. It is about desire and the fear. And we also see something new that happens is that we now understand that Neo's power is based on Trinity. That his connection to Trinity is where he gets his power from. It's not so much his belief that he's the one, but it's his connection to Trinity. Okay, I think that's about it. But like I said, there's a lot more to come, and I understand how people are out there, that you kind of have a fixed way that you want information provided to you, and I'm not going to do that. I don't care how small this channel remains, but the idea is you're going to get the perfect matrix resurrection decodes only at this site. Have a nice day.